Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this Planning Committee meeting of the whole for Monday, January 11th to order. It has been moved by Councillor Junkin that the agenda for the January 11th, 2016 meeting of Committee of the Whole Public Meeting Planning Act be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is, any conflicts of interest. Do any members of council have any conflicts they need to declare?
None, Mr. Mayor.
Can it be so noted that there are no conflicts? Thank you. Now, we do have 3 planning applications under the Planning Act, and I have some opening remarks for each of them. This is the notice requirements for the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 330 Foss Road. The Planning Act requires under Section 3212 that council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public of a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. This public meeting has been called to satisfy these requirements. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on December 10th, 2015. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw 1136 as amended. In addition to planning staff providing information on the application, we'll also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. There is an attendance list. It's here on the table in front of Richard with Kojiko. And we would ask all present to print their name and complete mailing address on that if they wish to be notified of the passage of amendment by council, should that occur. If a person or public body decides to file an appeal of a decision made by council in respect to the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw and does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Pelham before the proposed amendment is adopted or refused, the Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss any or all of that appeal, any part or all of that appeal. In closing, we stress at this point no decision has been made on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore any comments received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. We have with us Ms. Julie Hanna, who's going to walk us through a bit of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Tonight I'm presenting the public meeting for 330 Foss Road. The purpose is to rezone the subject parcel from agricultural A zone to a site-specific agricultural A zone indicating agricultural purposes only, or APO. The location of the subject parcel is on the south side of Foss Road, west of Effingham Street, municipally known as 330 Foss Road. The consent sketch of the subject parcel is showing it illustrated as Part 2. In terms of provincial policies, the subject parcel is within a prime agricultural area according to the Provincial Policy Statement 2014. It is outside of the Greenbelt Plan area, therefore the Greenbelt Plan policies do not apply, and it is also outside of the Niagara-Escarpment Plan area, therefore the Niagara-Escarpment Plan policies do not apply. It is within the prime agricultural area according to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The regional
Ms. Hanna, if you could just hold on for a second.
Yes.
Ms. Van Ravensway, would you mind just turning down the lights on over top of those, or maybe Richard could do that? Perfect. That's great. Richard did it. Thank you very much, Richard. Just to allow people, I saw some folks squinting in the back in council, so. I'm sorry, Ms. Hanna, please continue.
That's okay. The regional official plan designates the subject parcel as good general agricultural area. The town's official plan designates the subject parcel as good general agricultural and environmental protection 2, or EP2. The permitted uses include agricultural, forestry, and other resource management uses, forest, fish, wildlife management uses, conservation, and flood control projects. And it is noted within the environmental protection 2 zone that there's nothing that precludes agricultural uses from occurring in those lands. The town's zoning bylaw currently zones the parcel as agricultural A zone. The permitted uses include one single detached dwelling, agricultural uses including greenhouses, and forestry and conservation uses. The proposed site-specific agricultural A zone would rezone the parcel to have the permitted uses include agricultural purposes only, and this is to fulfill the condition of the consent and meet provincial and regional and local policies. In terms of agency and public comments, no agency or town department indicated any issues or objections to the application, and to date, no public comments have been received. This presentation has provided information on application AM 0615 to rezone the subject parcel to a site-specific agricultural A zone. And again, as the mayor stated, no recommendations or decisions concerning this application have been made at this meeting. And I'd like to thank the members of the public and council for attending this evening meeting. And after tonight's meeting, questions on this file may be directed to myself, and my contact information is provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah. Do members of council have any questions for Ms. Hannah following her presentation? Okay, thank you. Now we'll open the floor to members of the public should they wish to make comment on the amendment. I would ask, we are videotaping this, so I would ask anybody that wants to make a comment, just come up to the podium. Don't be scared. And state your name and address for the record for the clerk, and then you can proceed and give council some feedback. So are there any members of the public that would like to give us any feedback on the application? Going a second time? Going a third time? All right, thank you. Is there any input from committee members on the application? Sorry.
Presentation or just the public? I'm sorry.
Did the applicant want to make a presentation? I'm sorry. The applicant, Mr. Lebo, you can make a presentation if you want. It's up to you.
I don't think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lebo. Thank you. Any committee input? Presentation of resolutions then. Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Kersey that Committee of the Whole receive the issue summary report for information as it pertains to application file number AM615 regarding 330 Foss Road, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare a recommendation report on this topic for committee's consideration. Any comments or questions regarding that motion? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to that report coming for council consideration. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the next item. These are the notice requirements for application for zoning bylaw amendment for 59, 65, 69, 107, and 166 Port Robinson Road. The Planning Act requires under Section 3412, the council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public of the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. The public meeting has been called to satisfy these requirements. Notice of the meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject properties on December 10th, 2015. Notice provided information on the property and proposed planning amendment to the zoning bylaw 1136 as amended. In addition, the planning staff providing information on the application will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. There is an attendance list on the table, and we'd ask all present to print their name and complete mailing address if they wish to be notified of the passage of the amendment by council should this occur. If a person or public body decides to file an appeal to a decision made by council in respect to the proposed amendment to a zoning bylaw and does not make oral submission at a public meeting such as this, or make written submissions to the town of Pelham before the proposed amendment is adopted or refused, the Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss all or part of that appeal. In closing, I stress that at this point no decision has been made on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore any comments received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. We do have a presentation for this one as well by Ms. Hannah. Please proceed.
This evening I'll be presenting the public meeting for 59, 65, 69, 107, and 166 Port Robinson Road, application AM 0715. The purpose of the application is to rezone the subject parcels from agricultural A zone to residential multiple 1, RM1, residential 2, R2, and residential development RD, and this is to fulfill a condition of consent. There are two separate locations or groupings of subject land. The first is on the north side of Port Robinson Road, east of Station Street, and these are municipal addresses 59, 65, 69, and 107 Port Robinson Road. And the second location is on the south side of Port Robinson Road, west of Rice Road, and its municipal address is 166 Port Robinson Road. The subject parcels on the north side of Port Robinson are surrounded by agricultural uses and single detached residences that are zoned agricultural to the east and south, single detached dwellings zoned residential 2 and residential 3, and 3 multiple residential buildings zoned residential multiple 2, and a site-specific residential multiple 1 to the west, and there's a commercial use to the north. The subject parcel on the south side of Port Robinson is surrounded by agricultural uses and single detached dwellings zoned agricultural A to the north and west, and a greenhouse and landscape business to the east that is located in the city of Thorold. The proposed zoning is shown on the 2 maps provided. For the north side of Port Robinson Road, adjacent to the road, is a zone of RM1 zoning that is being proposed. The RD zoning is shown in the blue hatch mark to the north part, and there is a small parcel of R2 zone on the far left parcel. On the right side is the map that illustrates the proposed zoning for 166 Port Robinson Road, and that is located on the south side of Port Robinson Road. The corner that's illustrated in red that has a single detached dwelling on it is proposed to be rezoned to residential multiple 1, with the remainder of the land being rezoned with the proposed Saffron Meadows subdivision. In terms of provincial policy, the subject area is within a settlement area and is outside of the Niagara Escarpment Plan area. It is located within a built boundary. The regional official plan designates the subject area as built-up area. The town's official plan designates the subject land as secondary plan area, East Fawn Hill, low-density residential, and East Fawn Hill, medium-density residential. The permitted uses include in the East Fawn Hill low-density designation, single detached and semi-detached dwelling units, accessory apartments and secondary suites, and accessory buildings. In the East Fawn Hill medium-density designations, all forms of townhouse units, small-scale apartment buildings, accessory apartments, and secondary suites. In regards to the town's zoning bylaw, the subject parcels are currently all zoned agricultural A zone. The permitted uses include agricultural uses including greenhouses, a single detached dwelling on 1 lot, and home occupations. The proposed residential multiple 1 zone permitted uses include triplex, semi-detached, duplex, boarding house, converted street townhouse, and block townhouse. In the proposed residential 2 zone, the permitted uses include 1 single detached dwelling, uses, buildings, and structures accessory, and home occupation. And the proposed residential development RD zone, permitted uses include 1 single detached dwelling on 1 lot, uses, buildings, and structures accessory to the foregoing permitted uses, and home occupations. There were no issues or objections that have been received from the Department of Public Works, Fire and Bylaw Services, and Building Department. And to date, 1 public comment has been received from Mr. Sacco, which illustrates that he has no issues or objections to the application. This presentation has provided information on application AM 0715 to rezone the subject parcel. No recommendations or decisions concerning this application have been made at this meeting. I'd like to thank you for attending this evening's meeting, and following tonight's meeting, questions and comments on this file may be directed to myself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you.
Do committee members have any questions for Ms. Hannah? Councillor Kersey, with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Ms. Hannah, could you explain why the proposal is to have an R2 zoning it seems like it's kind of unusual to have that parcel carved out of the RD zoning. Is it because there's an existing dwelling there?
There is an existing dwelling on several of the land holdings that is part of the application. And the applicant provided planning staff with a preliminary sketch that illustrates that some of the existing homes will be maintained, and then the remainder of the land will be developed, and that will be the subject of a future application.
Just as a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, so assuming that there is a dwelling on the R2 piece at the present, is that, am I making the right assumption?
There is currently a dwelling on the R2 piece, and so that is why that portion's being zoned R2, and it's consistent with the secondary plan for East Fawn Hill.
So then, just as a follow-up, the proponent would be providing an easement across the RM1 zoning that fronts onto Port Robinson Road in order to have access to the R2 zoning? Or are they proposing to provide access within the RD zone? Just
How do you get access to the R2 zone?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so that would be, for the future application, it illustrates the road pattern, and at that time, planning staff would be dealing with any easements that are required. At this time, we have not had discussions that easements would be required to access any of the lands.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, all right. Councilor Gurley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. This seems to be amending the zoning bylaw. Why did it go to committee of adjustment and not be handled as an amendment to the zoning bylaw?
Ms. Hannah? This is a condition of.
It's a condition
committee
of
adjustment.
consent to rezone the subject parcels to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Planning and Development. And so that's why the rezoning application was made.
Okay, so in fact, they were just looking for a severance at committee of adjustment?
They consolidated various land holdings for the purposes of putting forward a draft plan, a subdivision application at a later date, and to sever the land that's adjacent to Port Robinson Road to allow for development in the near future. And so that's why the rezoning application was put forward at this time.
I see what has happened. I just question how it happened. But okay, that works for me if it works for you.
Ms. Weems, would you just provide the councilor with additional information, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the applicant has been assembling parcels of land for future residential development as part of the whole East Font Hill neighborhood plan and development. So he severed off some existing residential lots that front onto Port Robinson Road. And so as part of that condition to fulfill the severance was to rezone the lands, merge the lands in title so they become one, the rear portion become one large development block that would be subject to a future plan of subdivision. The portion of the lands that are fronting on Port Robinson Road are being zoned to a residential multiple because they are designated medium density in the official plan. And so they need to be rezoned to be brought into compliance with the official plan. The proponents will be doing, there will be a few of the homes that they'll demolish and rebuild townhouses. And then there is the one lot that Councillor Kersey referenced, which is the R2. It is an existing single detached dwelling that will be retained. And right now it gets its access off of Port Robinson Road. And in the future, when there is a new subdivision that gets created, to the back, it will receive its access off of a new lot, and then the front piece can be developed for residential multiple consistent with the secondary plan and the official plan at a later date. So it's been a bit of a land assembly, but in order to achieve the land assembly, they had to go to the Committee of Adjustment first. And now they're here doing some of their preliminary rezonings to fulfill those conditions, and then there will be other planning applications dealing with the bigger plan of subdivision that'll occur to the rear of the lands in the future.
So in fact, the East Fond Hill secondary plan is the driver of this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Christie.
Mr. Mayor, so is there any recommendation or thought about, I know we haven't got to the recommendation stage, but on the RM1 piece that abuts to the R2 piece, of putting a holding provision on there?
Could you go
until-
back to that slide if you don't
Until
mind?
such time as, because otherwise you're dealing with an easement across there, and it may encumber the development of that piece anyway.
That piece is all one property right now.
Yes.
The RM1 with the R2 combined, or when the lot gets, the consent gets created, it will be one large lot. So there is no need for an easement at this time. They get their current access off of Port Robinson Road, and that will continue. In the future, when there is a new road built and they will be able to access off the rear, then they will need to come back and get another consent to sever that front piece off in order to do the, any RM1. So there really isn't a need for a holding zone in this circumstance.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you.
I better do what the clerk indicated earlier, which is if the applicant would like to make a presentation. I believe we do have a agent of the applicant here. Please state your name and address and.
Hi, my name is
record.
Brent LaRock. My address is 12 Lyman Street, St. Catharines, Ontario. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the owners who are doing the land assembly. Lost the picture.
Can we get the picture back on the screen for Mr. LaRock? Thank you, Ms. Hannah.
I can keep going.
Yes, it doesn't dissolve.
Upon review of the information report, I note that it confirms that what my client is attempting to do is consistent with East Fond Hill secondary plan. With this rezoning application, we are proposing changing the current designation of the agricultural to a residential zoning, which is shown on the demonstration plan for land use attached as Appendix A to the recently approved official plan for the town. As shown on the demonstration plan, it is intended that the lands on the immediate north side of Port Robinson Road is designated for medium land use. My client is proposing to construct townhouses along this strip. Upon review of bylaw 1136/1987, I know that section 16.3 subsections B, E, and F appear a little onerous. I would like to request site-specific zoning for number 65 and 65 Port Robinson Road, which are these two properties here
So
at the bottom, sorry.
65 and 69?
65 and 69.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Those two properties right there. Okay. 65 is currently vacant. 65 is currently vacant. Okay, and on 69 is an existing house. Okay. So requesting that site-specific rezoning for that immediate area. I feel it's more appropriate to have a minimum lot corner frontage of 9 meters. The minimum exterior and interior side yard with set at 1.5 meters. In fact, that's how it exists right now with the existing house. And to be able to sell townhouse units, we would like to require a setback of 0 so that we can sell the townhouse units individually. Currently, bylaw 1136 doesn't specifically state that you can have a setback of 0, I'm pretty sure. We currently have conditional approval for 69 Port Robinson Road to exist unto itself as an individual lot. We anticipate presenting the idea of severing 65 Port Robinson to the Committee of Adjustment shortly. That would sever off the red from the blue. Okay. For number 65 Port Robinson, it will allow the rear lands to be developed as a subdivision. This is mass land assembly that we're attempting to do. And the strip of land along the road to be developed separately as townhouses. Going with the idea of townhouses along Port Robinson Road, we'd like the committee to grant us the ability to merge 65 and 69. I would be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Do members of committee have any questions for Mr. LaRock? Councillor Ribbiak.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, not of Mr. LaRock, but on the subject.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify my understanding, I understood that if two pieces of property abutting one another are owned by the same person, they automatically, by operation of law, become one lot? Am I right or wrong in that?
Ms. Weems, can you help the councillor?
Oh, that depends on the circumstance. If it's not in land titles, then yes, that often happens. In this case, Mr. LaRock's client owns these properties, but they're in various corporation names as well, so they haven't merged in title.
So they haven't merged in titles, so they, okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any others to Mr. LaRock's presentation? Would it be helpful to have that in writing, Mr. LaRock's presentation? I know the clerk took notes, but would it be helpful for staff to?
Certainly. We'd ask that you provide us your notes for the record.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we move to public input. Any input from members of the public? I don't think there's any input from members of the public, so going once, going twice, going three times. Thank you. And now committee input. Are there any other questions? Councillor Kersey, did you say you had something to add at the time?
Oh, that's fine, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Other members of committee? So we look forward to receiving, I guess, that the staff in writing, and they'll have to consider that as they draft their report. So it has been moved by Councillor Ribbiat. Sorry, Ms. Weems?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to indicate that certainly those requests that were made by Mr. LaRock with regards to some of the site-specific exceptions, we would bring forward to you in the recommendation report.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. And now we're ready for resolution. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak that Committee of the Whole receives the issue summary report for information as pertains to the application file number AM 0715 regarding 59, 65, 69, 107, and 66 Port Robinson Road, and the committee direct planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on this topic for committee's consideration. Comments or questions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to that report. Thank you for the participation. Now we'll move to the third and final, and we have the same notice requirements. This is for application for zoning bylaw amendment 311 Chandler Road. File number AM 0815. The Planning Act requires under section 3412 the council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing public of a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. This public meeting has been called to satisfy these requirements. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on December 10th, 2015. Notice provided information on the proper property and the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw as amended. In addition, the planning staff providing information in the application will also receive any comments from any member of the public may wish to offer. There is an attendance list on the table, which would ask all present to print their name and complete mailing address should they wish to be notified of passage of this amendment should this occur. If a person or body decides to file an appeal of a decision made by council in respect to proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw and does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Pelham before this proposed amendment is adopted or refused, the Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss all or part of the appeal. In closing, we stress that at this point no decision has been made on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and therefore any comments received will be taken into account by council in their consideration. Ms. Hannah, you have a presentation. Would you please proceed? Thank you.
So the public meeting for 311 Chandler Road, zoning amendment application AM 0815. The purpose of the application is to rezone the subject parcel from agricultural A to a site-specific agricultural zone indicating agricultural purposes only, or APO. The location of the subject parcel is on the north side of Chandler Road, west of Effingham Street, municipally known as 311 Chandler Road. The subject parcel is surrounded by agricultural uses on lots of varying sizes, many of which contain single detached residential dwellings. In the consent sketch that was provided to the Committee of Adjustment, the subject parcel is illustrated as Part 2. In regards to provincial policy, the subject parcel is within a prime agricultural area according to the provincial policy statement. It is outside of the Greenbelt Plan area and the Niagara-Escarpment Plan area, therefore those plans do not apply. And it is within a prime agricultural area according to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. In terms of the regional official plan, the subject parcel is designated as good general agricultural area. And the town's official plan designates the subject parcel as good general agricultural. The permitted uses include agricultural, forestry, and other resource management uses. The town zoning bylaw currently zones the parcel as agricultural A uses. The permitted uses include one single detached dwelling, agricultural uses including greenhouses, and forestry and conservation uses. The proposed site-specific agricultural zone would see the permitted uses include agricultural purposes only. There have been no issues or objections raised by any agency, and to date, no public comments have been received. In conclusion, this presentation has provided information on application AM 0815 to rezone the subject parcel to a site-specific agricultural A zone. No recommendations or decisions concerning this application have been made at this meeting. And I thank you for attending this evening's meeting, and following this evening's meeting, questions on this file may be directed to myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Do members of committee have any questions for Ms. Hannah regarding her presentation? Thank you, Ms. Hannah.
Thank you.
I believe an agent for the applicant, or the applicant, is here. Would you like to make a presentation? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any input from members of the public regarding this application? Again, are there any members of the public that would like to comment regarding this application? Going once, going twice, 3 times gone. Thank you. Committee input regarding the application. Thank you. Presentation of resolutions. It has been moved by Councillor King that Committee of the Whole receives the issue summary report for information as it pertains to application file AM 0815 regarding 311 Chandler Road, and the committee direct planning staff to prepare a recommendation report on this topic for committee's consideration. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried, and we look forward to that report. That's it. It has been moved by Councillor King that this meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular committee scheduled for Monday, February 8th, 2016, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Did you keep that little files, what I read? Thank you. Wouldn't you think, what he asked for, shouldn't he have included that in his application?
Do you need this?
I would have thought, yeah, I would have thought it was a little weird.
Let me get my thing.
Like, you have to, can you do that? Can you?
You can ask for it, but like I agree.
Does he have to circulate that or not? I don't know.